cheese. It's in almost everything we eat these days. From pizza to prata, burgers to burritos, even sushi and mookata.
So a viewer wrote in to ask us, what's in the cheese we eat? I have to admit, I'm not too sure. So in this episode of Talking Point, I want to find out what's inside this tasty, gooey stuff.
To start chasing down what's in our cheese, I'm going to pick out a variety of cheeses found in our supermarket shelves.
Sliced mozzarella, cheddar, grated ones, cheese sticks, cubes, triangles, popular among kids. Cream cheese, commonly used in dips and spreads. And let's not forget nacho cheese.
These cheeses are clearly processed, but how much do we love them?
Nacho cheese is very delicious. It's amazing. And it goes on with a lot of things.
Mozzarella.
How often do you have that?
3 or 4 times a day in different dishes like grilled cheese, pizzas.
This one, cheddar cheese. Shredded mozzarella. We usually have it like every week with our pasta. Yeah, maybe. And she loves her cheese. She can just eat cheese basically.
I like shredded mozzarella.
Mine would be shredded mozzarella. Primarily, I think it's more used in the sandwiches and pizzas where you get the stretchy feeling.
Do you know what's inside your favorite cheese?
No, actually.
From cream, cow's milk.
On the cows, they fermented the cheese, it becomes the cheese. What the contents, I don't know what is the content.
Milk and bacteria, I don't know.
I don't know. I just see that cannot expire, then you can eat already. And then this one tastes better lah. We go for the taste.
Your favorite pigs, cream cheese, shredded mozzarella, and cheese slices. To know what's in these types of cheese, I need to know how they are made. Claire Petit has spent 15 years studying food and their nutritional values. She's going to break down the basic components of processed cheese for me.
So I went about and asked a whole bunch of people and I found out that these were often the favorite cheeses. But the question is, what's really in them?
A lot of these cheeses here are what we call processed cheeses.
Right.
So they will start with a base of, say, real cheese, which is made up of milk. So we've got some milk here. Cultures,
Okay.
bacterial cultures, some salt,
Right.
and then some rennet, which is an enzyme. Cheese, heat it up. The fats and the solids will separate. Now, in order to make it this nice creamy consistency that you have from these processed cheeses, then you will need to add some emulsifier, and that will keep the ingredients, the fats, from separating. In addition to emulsifiers, they will add other ingredients. So you will have things like preservatives. There's often a lot more salt in these processed products as well. And you might also add some flavorings
Okay.
or even some colorings.
Ah.
And so if you see the color of this kind of cheese, it's a lot more yellow.
Oh, okay. So actually, when it comes down to it, in a packet like this, how much of it is actual cheese?
I mean, it can vary, but it's normally around the 50% mark.
Processed cheese has to contain at least 50% cheese for them to be recognized by America's Food and Drug Administration as cheese. But the other half of it are mysterious sounding ingredients like these, which I'm told are preservatives and additives that allow them to be kept for months to more than a year. But if you think that these are the only types of cheese processed, think again.
I think the softer one are not processed, like all this.
I've just discovered that the processed cheese we are most familiar with, like sliced, shredded, and cream, are made using preservatives and additives. but I've always assumed these blocks of cheese I see in supermarkets, which can be on average twice the cost of the processed cheeses we're familiar with, are natural cheeses. They include cheddar, Gouda, and red Leicester. My producer is doing a social experiment. We've gathered a wide variety of cheese from the supermarket, the block cheeses I mentioned earlier. I've also got ricotta and mascarpone, but the cream versions, and the ones most familiar to us. Some of the grated, sliced, cubed, and triangular cheese. The mission is to find out if Singaporeans can tell which are the processed cheeses.
Probably the sliced cheese, the sliced cheddar, the sliced pepper jack.
All the sliced cheeses, the triangles, the cubes, and the cheddar.
I mean, I'm making a guess here. So, I by the look of it, this looks like not processed, but this looks like more processed.
This one, I think because of the color, it's darker.
Sliced cheddar, sliced mozzarella, and cheese cubes. Because usually you can find them in supermarkets. So most likely they are processed. I'm not sure.
Well, guess what? They are all processed to some extent. Even these. Alfred Lowe has won a talent scouting competition that could have earned him a place in show business. But he's chosen to scout for something else. Cheese. Today, he's running one of Singapore's few cheese board businesses. I want to know the differences between processed and natural cheeses.
The main difference being natural cheeses mainly are made of full milk, whereas the processed cheeses contain much more than just milk alone. I believe you have seen nacho cheese, right? The nacho cheese dip. Every time it's the same consistency, thickness the same, colors the same, which is not possible on the natural items.
Okay. That one is I would consider ultra
super ultra.
And are you able to tell just how much actual cheese is inside the cheese? Like this, I would imagine, is what, at least 90%?
I would say near to 100% for natural cheeses.
Okay.
They use full milk, granite, and salt. Also, we actually spent a lot of effort building this humidity control room. Why? Is because a lot of cheeses, when they arrive in Singapore, is actually not suitable for the climate here.
Right.
So with that, we built in a humidity control to ensure that they have sufficient water and air, and even the coolness as well. So we kept it at 4 to 7 degrees to ensure that their lifespan actually being extended even longer. So there's a lot of manpower effort being built in, and that is why some of the artisanal cheeses are a little bit more pricey as compared to processed cheese.
Most cheese sold in supermarkets are either processed or ultra-processed, but they are at least 3 to 5 times cheaper than natural cheeses, which is perhaps why they are becoming more commonly used in restaurants, even high-end ones. Richard Chor teaches cheese production and also advises food establishments on regulation in the culinary industry.
Kitchen restaurants prefer to use processed cheese because processed cheese have better performance in terms of textures, consistency, flavor, as well as color. But most importantly, processed cheese have longer shelf life because it has been added with ingredients that extend the shelf life. In fact, some processed cheese are actually stable at room temperature.
Oh wow!
You don't even have to put in the chiller. Yes.
Wow! That's how processed it is. It doesn't need to be chilled.
Correct. This is cream cheese. This is definitely processed cheese.
Okay.
So you can see that's easily taken out and easily spreadable on anything like your crackers or your bread.
Right.
And give you the consistent texture, the same consistent flavor. So it actually gives you the same consistent menu on your restaurant table as well.
So and as a chef, that's important. It means I know the end result will always be the same.
Correct. And also with some added advantages, which I'll show you with some examples. Okay, we have burgers and pizza. So from here, which one you prefer?
Wow, I mean, I can tell immediately in terms of pizza, this one looks way more, enticing. As for the burgers, I would say, yeah, this one looks like it actually has cheese on it.
Oh, well, Steve, you just chosen the processed cheese. Let me show you the original versions before we actually cook them.
Oh, so this...
So this is the processed cheese and this is actually the natural cheese. But they actually look almost the same. They have good shapes, good appearance before cooking. But after cooking, you see the difference.
After effect, it's not so
Yeah,
great.
so you can see that for natural cheese, you'll see oil separations. Okay,
Yeah.
and then it will melt fully and it becomes like transparent or translucent. And you may feel that, did you actually even put a piece of cheese on my burger? But in actual fact, I have actually put 2 pieces of cheese. This is using processed cheese. You can still see the cheese, consistent color. The most importantly, there's no oil separations.
Look at all the oil over here, yeah.
So the appearance, the look, the color, and the shapes actually make it more appealing to consumers. Similarly, for pizza, they look definitely the same before you send them for baking. But after baking, the processed cheese gives you a very nice blistering effect or browning effect, and that definitely look more appealing as a pizza. As compared to this natural cheese, you see the oil separations and you don't see the browning and blistering effect at all.
Oh my gosh, this one doesn't even look like pizza. It looks so sad. I mean, would you? I would never eat this.
To make it premium nowadays, restaurants actually mix processed cheese and natural cheese. Then they will tell consumers, you still having natural cheese, but they actually added some processed cheese inside to give it the look, the appealing looks, effects, and the so-called the elasticity. The stretch that you prefer to see.
Oh.
Yes, so you can actually see
the natural one.
You won't be able to see.
Wow, I mean, it's a little bit cold now. We've had it out for a few minutes, but it's.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
It's
like solid. You know, I recall giving my kids cheese cubes like these when they were younger because it's supposed to be high in calcium and protein, right? But knowing now that processed cheese isn't 100% natural cheese, I'm wondering just how healthy they really are. Hi, Bonnie. Dietitian Bonnie Lau has spent the last 10 years working on food nutrition. Today, I've arranged to meet her with some test subjects. I have brought a whole bunch of different cheeses.
That's a lot of cheeses.
That's a lot of cheese, right? With all these processed cheeses, my understanding is that they often have certain additives and preservatives. Is that harmful to us?
Let's just have a look. So this one shows, yes, it does have emulsifiers. So E331 is sodium citrate. It's fairly naturally found in food as well. Another thing is preservative. And one example here is E200. So that is sorbic acid. That's actually naturally found in fruits already. So preservatives help to preserve the food. So make sure that the bacteria doesn't actually spoil it.
Right, and extend the shelf life of all these cheeses, right?
Yes, that's right. And another one would be like the acidity regulator, E330. So that's actually citric acid. So it sounds very scary and everything in the code, but it's actually the same acid that's found in like lemons that give it a sour taste. So that serves a partial function to preserve and also to give it a slightly tangy taste. All of these are approved by the Singapore Food Authority, so it is actually safe for consumption in the small amounts in the cheese. Also approved by US FDA, the European Commission.
Very often they are packed in a way to make it really attractive to kids, kids sticks. And they come in little bite-sized pieces which kids often love to have, and when they get one of these, they may not be having just one stick, they could be having 3, 4, 5 sticks. So is that a concern?
So I would still recommend like the real cheese rather than this kind of slightly more processed one to kids. So for example, this one it has sugar as the third ingredient. And in an ingredients list, the higher it is to the top, it means that it's in the higher quantity. Another thing we can look at is the sodium content of the food. So for example, like this nacho cheese sauce, there's a huge amount of ingredients here. And if I look at it, it's the 5th ingredient, cheese.
Yeah, water is number 2, vegetable oil is number 3.
So all these things are basically filling the product, and you're not getting much cheese at all inside.
Okay.
It contains 770 milligrams of sodium in just one small tub.
Okay, and usually what's our daily recommended intake?
So the Health Promotion Board recommends a maximum daily allowance of 2,000 milligrams. So that's already 1/3 of it just by having one tub of that.
If processed cheese are generally high in salt and fat content, I want to know which might be the worst of the lot. To do so, I need to break down the nutritional content, and this takes some data crunching. So I'm enlisting the help of Bonnie. I've gathered various types of ultra-processed cheese, the kind we eat most often. From slices to shredded, blocks, cream, to cheeses for kids, and even nacho cheese. Bonnie is going to compile information on the levels of calories, fat, sodium, and sugar for you. It's been 4 days, and Bonnie has got the nutritional data comparing various processed cheese ready. If you recall, the categories we looked at are sliced, shredded, ultra-processed blocks of cheese, cream, cheese for kids, and nacho cheese. And deep dived into the levels of calories, fat, sodium, and sugars for each kind of processed cheese.
So Bonnie, I'm eager to find out the results.
I found that the cheese with the highest calories is one of the block cheeses, so cheddar, because actually the less water is inside, the more fat and other nutrients are inside as well.
Because it's actually a more dense...
It's much more dense and less water.
I see.
Ultra-processed hard block cheese has the highest fat, including unhealthy saturated fats, and calories because it is densely packed. But coming in a close second are cheese slices, followed by grated cheese.
Okay, so that's calories. What else?
Yep. So the other thing that could be good to look at for cheese would be how much sugar is inside. Usually most cheeses don't have a lot of sugar anyway.
Okay.
The soft cheeses tend to have a little bit more than the hard blocked ones because the aging process of the hard blocked cheeses tends to have the bacteria eat up the lactose or sugar. So as a general, like hard blocked cheeses are the lowest in carbohydrates.
So when you say carbohydrates, I mean we're looking at what? It includes...
Well, it includes like both starch and sugar. So most of the time in cheese it would be like sugar, the lactose naturally, but also there could be added sugars like fructose or sugar like it is in this product. The one that had the highest carbohydrate is actually the one with sugar added. So the sweet strawberry cheese.
The one for kids, yeah. So even though this one says there's no preservatives, it actually has more sugar than all the others, which isn't such a great thing.
Yeah, so like interestingly, like the cheeses that are marketed to children often do have a lot of sugar added to it because kids like sweet things.
Right.
So even though it tastes good, it may not be the best for your child.
Wow, so while I think I'm helping my kids grow by giving them good cheese in that sense, I'm feeding them with sugar.
Sugar, exactly.
Oh no!
Yes. It's better to go for the more natural, unsweetened type.
When it comes to sugar content, the worst culprits are the ones marketed to kids like these sticks and triangular apportioned pieces. Not to mention the ones with added flavorings like these. Coming in second are cheese slices, followed by cream cheese.
And the other thing that we would consider would be ideally something that would be lower sodium, especially if you're looking for your blood pressure.
That's right.
Yep.
Less
So
salt always
the
better.
lowest sodium out of all these products is actually the cream cheese, which you would expect because cream cheese is not salty. Whereas the saltiest, so the highest sodium is, again, it's the block cheeses. Same concept as being quite dense in nutrients and low in water. And also generally quite salty as well. So that's why you would best to have like just a small amount, like 30 grams each serving only.
Ultra-processed block cheese had an average of a whopping 1,600 milligrams of sodium per 100 grams. That's 80% of our recommended 2,000 milligrams of sodium per serving per day. That's why Bonnie recommends eating only a small amount of ultra-processed block cheese a day. But if you think that is bad, coming in a close second are cheese slices, which has an average of 1,300 grams of sodium per 100 grams. This is followed by cheese marketed to kids and grated cheese.
I have to admit, I'm surprised that the cheese sauce has not come into the picture at all. I would have thought that this stuff is not very good. Why is that the case? Why is it not being picked up in our numbers?
Yeah, so the interesting thing is because I'm using a per 100 gram basis, a lot of the content of this is actually water inside. So that's why everything's become diluted. So the sodium and everything. But then you have to consider the portion that you'll be eating. Like you might actually be having like a whole half a bottle of this.
Right.
Whereas for cheese, you might actually only have a little small slice. So that's why it doesn't show up in the numbers.
So let me ask you then, at the end of the day, really, which is the worst?
So I would say the nacho cheese dips are the least healthy because they are the most processed with the highest amount of additives inside. Things like vegetable oil, some of them even have like partially hydrogenated oil, which as we all know has a lot of trans fat, which blocks our arteries. They might add sugar or starch inside. So the amount of cheese inside is very minimal. Like it's mostly you're just getting like some vinegar, water, oil inside, sugar.
So it's almost like I'm just having cheese-flavored sauce.
Exactly.
Right. What I've learned from this episode is that generally most of the cheeses we find in the supermarket are processed. But here's a little tip for you. Take a look at the ingredients list. Chances are the longer the list, the more processed the cheese is. And while eating too much of anything processed is not ideal, these are a lot more cost-friendly and do last longer too. Though on those special occasions, you might want to indulge in something a little bit different and maybe try some natural cheeses.